Hello everyone, Aman here, and today we're going to continue with our series that we are doing on reading comprehension. So yesterday, as I can recall, we did the passage number 27 from Aristotle RC 99, right? So today we're going to start with passage number 28. So first of all, let me just answer some of the queries you guys had in the doubt group, right? So some of you were saying that I should like put like all the options and everything into the quiz form, right? So I don't have any problem in doing that, but the thing is like I already only have a certain amount of time that I can devote, right? So if I'm spending all that time into the aesthetics and just putting questions on Telegram and making quizzes out of them, so I won't be able to make like the details explanation because obviously my time will be going there, right? So I'm actually choosing to invest my time into the explanations because that is the part that I think you guys need. So you like this is probably what you're gonna get, right? And what I would recommend is basically to grab a paper and whenever you're reading it, just jot down your answers like ABC and whatnot. So it's just like four or five questions anyway. So all you need to do is just like mark your or like write your answers down, right? So yeah, and another one was can I do the sessions in Hindi? So yeah, so I'll basically what I'll do, I'll try to keep these sessions as concise and as short as possible, like without losing out on points, obviously. But and then I'll try to do like kind of a short summary thing in Hindi as well, so I can just give you the basic ideas and like everything that's needed. But that's not an alternative to this one, right? So you also have to listen to this one, and if you don't understand, let's say you're able to understand just 50% of it, so then you can go on to that one and you can just listen to that one, all right? And yeah, so if you need any suggestions or any if you have any doubts regarding this, right? So you can just tag me on the discussion group. That's it. Let's start with the passage now. So we're gonna use the same methodology you use. We're just gonna think in terms of ideas, right? So yeah, so just keep that in mind and keep. So basically, I'm assuming like this goes without saying now. So I think you have already attempted the passage and you already have your answers laid down and basically you have like an idea for every single paragraph there is in this passage, right? So right now when I read this, so I want you to open the thing and just read like just have a like just go through the thing while I'm reading it, right? So it's passage number 28. The apparent change from the rather mechanistic explanation of evolution put forth by the Greeks to more creationist reasoning found later in Europe was a significant paradigm shift. Yet it is clear that the idea of evolution was not first pioneered by Darwin himself. So if you know who Darwin was, then it makes your task really easy because Darwin is like most of you, I think, should know Darwin. Darwin is the guy who basically gave the theory of evolution, like how we evolved from fishes to like to people we are today, right? From apes and monkeys and whatnot. So that whole theory of evolution was given by Darwin. So that is a background knowledge that you might need in this one. If even if you don't have that, you can just like infer the meaning from the whole thing, right? It's really easy. And there's this word here, paradigm shift, right? So paradigm shift means basically, let's say you think about something in a particular sense right now, and something happens and you have an epiphany, right? So what happens is like your whole thinking, your whole like idea how you used to perceive things, right? So it just changes. So that is what is called a paradigm shift, right? So what is the idea that the author is trying to create in this paragraph? So I actually want you to say the idea. So yeah, I hope you have done that. And so basically, according to me, he's just trying to establish that Darwin was not the first person who just came with the theory of evolution, right? So this was quite easy. And now we're going to move on to the second one. It is essential to confront the creationist issue and to look at it in a scientific manner. Creationism is not a science and it does not belong in the science classroom. However, a frank discussion of creationism with the students is also important. To avoid it may suggest that perhaps there is something valid there, lurking in irrationality. So now, as you can see, he has gone all pessimistic now. So Here's basically what is creationism. See, there are two theories. When Darwin said the evolution happened, right? So basically, that indirectly means all the theories that religions were giving, basically Christianity in the Western world, right? So Christianity used to say like there was Adam and Eve, God created everything. So this idea was just against the whole idea that religion was telling people, right? So that was creationism, that people like say the whole existence is created by God, right? So that is creationism, and the this idea that evolution theory is exactly opposite to that. But author is trying to what exactly the idea is here, right? So he basically argues that the creationism is not a science, first thing. So it has no place in the science classroom, and we should, but the thing is like he's not looking away from it because he's basically saying we have to discuss this with our students and yeah, with our students, because they might think if we are avoiding the discussion there might be some valid arguments that creationism has. So mm, in order for you to discard a theory, at least you need to first acknowledge the theory that it exists, right? So that's what he's saying. Just two ideas so far. The late Carl Sagan, one of the staunchest advocates of rationality and the um, reason in increasingly irrational and superstitious world in which we live, has defended the importance of good science teaching by saying, in the demon haunted world that we inhabit by virtue of being human, science may be all that stands between us and the enveloping darkness. In the most simple form, the concept of evolution is that the populations of the organism change over time. One can trace the origin of the evolutionary thought at least as far back as Greeks. So what exactly did Carl Sagan say? Carl Sagan, as you know, is basically he's a really famous scientist, as I can remember. So there's a word here, staunchest. What does staunch mean? It's basically an adjective, and that means basically loyal and committed, right, to something. So here it would mean like staunchest advocate would mean like he's a loyal advocate, like he's really supports the idea, right? So he's like all about rationality. Rationality means like having logic to something, right? So that's what he's saying, and he's the really strong advocate of it, right? So yeah, now we're gonna move on to the next one. Anaximander in 500 BC held the belief that the living creatures were formed from water and the humans and other animals were descended from fishes. So you should notice this. Like when they say, what is the plural of fish, right? So it's fish. Plural of fish is fish. But why do we write fishes then? The reason behind that is when there are different, for example, I have a fish, like I have a tuna, right? So tuna is a fish. So when there are like a lots of tuna, a lot of tunas, right? So they are still fish. But the thing is, when I have different species of fish, so they are called fishes. So for example, I have tuna, I have sharks and everything. So that makes them fishes. And if we just have one species of fish and it's just like multiple fishes, so then you call them fish, right? So that is the difference. Empedocles, around 400 BC, proposed an evolutionary hypothesis in which he stated that the heads, limbs, and various other parts of animals were continuously joined in random combinations. Examples: human heads with cows' bodies, and that only some of these combinations were fit for survival. So, what exactly is the idea they are trying to convey here? So he's basically saying like he's just trying to establish the fact that basically how in those time in like 500 BC and 400 BC the people used to think about evolution, and he's basically trying to establish a kind of theory that was prevalent in those days, right? How they used to think about things, like for example Anaximander, this guy used to think like we came from fishes, and it's actually true in a sense, right? And then the other guy used to think like we are just like a combination of different things, so this one is not that true. So this is basically the fact that he's trying to establish. So what is the idea is basically he's just trying to establish like how it used to be in the old times. That is the whole idea. Simple, right? Christian philosophers later elaborated on the ideas of Aristotle and Plato when they reasoned that because existence is a good thing and because God is considered benevolent, God must have bestowed existence on all creatures. This twist of circular reasoning to which the name natural theology was applied, dominated the period preceding Darwin. And this philosophy resisted change long after Darwin published his theory of natural selection in 1859. So what exactly is he saying here? So he's trying to say, basically, if you don't know who Aristotle and Plato are, so they are basically ancient Greek philosophers. You must have read something from Plato, like his Republic. These are just philosophers, right? Old philosophers. What Christian philosophers did, they like mandate their theory, and they basically said, like, whole existence, everything you see around you is a good thing, and good thing can only be made by a good, like someone who loves everyone. So benevolent means like basically someone who loves like everyone, right? So that's benevolent. So that was their reasoning, and they said like everything must be made by God, right? And they are trying to establish the fact like what kind of like time it was when Darwin like came along. So just before Darwin, this was the attitude that people had. And even when Darwin gave his theory of natural selection 1859, the theory I just told you about in the start, so this theory was still around, and these people were resisting. Obviously, church wouldn't like it, right? So yeah, this is the whole idea. So how like the idea here would be like how these theories were there, and he this is basically just to establish like what kind of environment there was when Darwin came along, right? Thomas Huxley, one of the Darwin's most ardent supporters, was one of the founding members of the powerful London School Board, which helped to set curriculum guidelines for students and teachers. However, in the United States, a strong biblical fundamentalism was taking hold, using the Bible as both means and consolation, as well as a guide for moral conduct. Many states passed laws banning the teaching of evolution in schools, and teachers who persisted either did so quietly or allowed themselves to be martyred. Most recently, those opposed to the teachings of evolution in schools have pressed the idea that the creation of creation science, a tactic devised by creationists in late 1960s to infiltrate America's science classroom with religious ideas. Basically, he's saying that Thomas Huxley, this guy was like a very big follower of Darwin, and he was actually the founding members of London School Board, right? And if this guy is in like a powerful position, he's gonna make sure that this theory is taught in the school. But then he makes the comparison with the United States, and that's quite kind of a starking comparison, because in United States, the biblical fundamentalism. What is biblical fundamentalism? Biblical fundamentalism means basically when you just go by the Bible, right? You just think Bible is absolute, and that is what should be taught to everyone, right? So this was taking hold, and these people were like trying to stop Darwin theory of evolution to coming to school, and teachers who supported it, either they were just doing it in secret or they were getting killed, right? So that's what it means. And so even now, what these people are doing, they are saying now they know like the science is just all around us and everyone knows how it happened. So basically, what they are saying is even creation theory is a science. So they are calling it creation science, and as you can see, the author is not happy about it, right? He's writing of them is like in a bad tone. So that's basically what he's saying. And what exactly the idea is here. So it's talking about the acceptance of evolution in Britain and how it was opposite in America, right? Creation science, despite the apparent oxymoron. What exactly is oxymoron? If you read English literature, oxymoron there means basically, for example, the word like the first two words in this sentence, creation science. If it's creation, if it's created by God, how exactly is it science? Because you're going against the science, right? So it's like two words or phrases that like are joined together, but they are just completely opposite each other, right? So, for example, I would say it's an open secret. If it's open, how could it be secret, right? So, this is what an oxymoron mean. That's it. It's simple as that, right? So, if you hear someone say like that's an oxymoron, this is what it means, right? Is a phrase that has been widely used by creationists to add legitimacy to their claims by stating that the creationism is a scientific theory just as much as evolution. By claiming that their ideas are scientific, creationists could then demand equal time in the classroom devoted by the evolutionary theory and the theory of creationism. So these people know now that our theory does not stand the time. But the thing is, now what they're trying to do, they're trying to enter the school and just get into the mind of the children, right? So these people are trying to call it a science, and they are saying like it is a theory as much as Darwin's theory, so it should be taught in school, and we need time for it to like we need it to be taught to your children, right? So as you can see, like author does not have a very good view of creationists, right? So yeah, that's all, and we have got the whole idea. And now we're gonna go to the questions. When reviewing all of the arguments made in the passage, it becomes apparent that the author's main idea in the passages, whenever you say main idea, a theme or whatever is the same thing, right? So what is the main idea? To explain the differences between natural selection and creation science. Is this what it is? If he wanted to do that, he wouldn't be like criticizing them, right? So it's not. So you would just cancel this one out. To show how the continued spread of creationist views is potentially dangerous affront the rational scientific understanding of evolution. Is this the whole idea? Every single fact that this guy gave in the passage, was it to make sure that you get to know how dangerous these creationist people are, and how dangerous they are to the rational thought and the understanding of evolution? It is, right? He just gave you some history stuff and like some facts from history and like whatnot just to make this point. It could be the answer, but we're still gonna read the other ones. To contrast the creationist viewpoints, such as fundamentalism and natural theology, with more ancient views of evolution. So this is a classic example of misuse of a detail. Author knows, like you have read this and you have these things in your mind right now. So you might just mark this as your answer, but he actually makes these points. Like he has like basically used the word fundamentalism, natural theology, and all these, right? But has he ever tried to make a contrast? Has he ever compared them? Never, right? So you just cut this out, right? It's a misuse of a detail to explain why the concept of evolution are more scientifically correct than those of creation science. Is this the idea? He doesn't want to do that, right? He basically assumes like everyone knows that, but he's just trying to make a point like how dangerous the creationists are. So that is the idea, right? That was the intent with which the whole passage was written, right? So this also gets ruled out. Option D, to argue that the creation science is the best explanation of evolution. I've told you this earlier as well. So whenever someone goes extreme, like this is the best, that is the worst, right? You just rule out that option. You never go with the extremes. So this one is an prime example of the extremes, right? So yeah, that's how you answer the questions. And obviously the option B is the most logical choice we have, right? So that's it. Au- Question 2. The author brings up Greek philosophers to point out which of the following. So he obviously talks about like those Greek philosophers. Why is he talking about them? That the origin of evolutionary thought comprised some silly notions such as heads, limbs, and various other parts of animals were always being joined at the random combinations. Is he trying to make fun of them? Is he trying to prove that they were silly? Yeah, he talks about it. Like he talks about like how limbs, heads, and everything was like considered and this like. But has he ever said, or has he ever made fun of them? He never, right? He never intended to do this. Maybe he was just using it as a fact, right? You never know. So we are just going to rule this out. It was never mentioned, and we never got the idea that he was trying to make fun of them. He just like said a fact, right? Option B, the origins of the evolutionary thought began long before Darwin. Was this the whole idea? No, he was just trying to, yeah, he has actually tried to like, he has given examples in relation to Darwin, like how these people were like way before Darwin and how they used to think. But all those were examples, all those were supporting details. They were supposed to help the main idea get across, and that was like how creationists are a danger to rationalism, right? So that is not the answer. Option B gets ruled out. Option C, the both evolutionary thought and creationism have their origins among Greeks. Is that why he used the Greek philosophers? Exactly. Because first he talks about Darwin, then he says like it was way before Darwin, right? Then he talks about some Greeks like 400 BC, 500 BC, and then he talks about Christians who came after Greeks. So obviously the Greeks were the oldest ones, right? So they all these have like their origin like among the Greeks somewhere. Option D. We're gonna hold on to C, but like we're still gonna read the option D. Anaximander first came up with the theory of evolution. He talks about Anaximander being present in 500 BC, and he's the oldest person like we have encountered in this paragraph. But has author ever said that this guy was the oldest one, and or this guy was the one who came up with this theory the first time? No, he never says that, right? So never infer anything from the passage like in this sense, right? So this one also gets ruled out. Option E, Greeks were far more learned than other group at the time. He never says that. This is just completely alien thing. Like he never says that. This thing is never discussed. Never. No comparison was ever made, right? So this is an alien concept here. Now we have the third one. Which of the following can be inferred from the passage? Right, this one, these are the questions that are just a given mark. Seriously, that's like you can just answer these kind of questions in 15 seconds and you're done. A frank discussion of creationism is pointless. Is that what he's saying? No, he actually said that like we should actually discuss creationism in the classes so children don't get inclined towards it, right? Thinking that it might have something. And then you have the option B. Carl Sagan was indifferent towards irrationality. This is exactly the opposite of what he was, right? As you can remember the word I taught you, staunch. So right, he was actually very like he was actually a big advocate of rationality. So this is exactly the opposite of that, right? Cross this one out. Option C, Anaximander believed that the humans were descended from apes. Never said that. He actually said they came from fishes, right? This one also is not true. Thomas Huxley approved of Darwin's theory. Yes, he was a big fan of Darwin. That's why he implemented his theory. Like he was an advocate of like Darwin's theory being taught in Britain school, right? So he this one we're gonna hold on to. Then you have the option E. Christian philosophers rejected the ideas of Aristotle and Plato. They never did that. They might have just like twisted the facts, but they actually the premise of their theories was actually in Aristotle and Plato, right? I think it was the fourth passage or some, fourth paragraph or something, right? So yeah, the option D is the answer. And that's it. Like that's how you eliminate options and like arrive at the most probable one, right? You can never say like this one is the absolute answer. No one can be sure. But the thing is, even if you're like 90% sure, that's a good thing in English, right? So that's all you need. And that's it. And I hope you like this one. And I've tried to keep it short as as possible because I didn't want to miss any points. Like otherwise, there's no point. Like I can just go with like I don't know. I can just go with like three passages a day, right? And my job would actually get easier. They're like 99. I'll do it in 33 days, right? But the thing is, like if I'm not able to explain everything in detail, right? You're not actually learning anything, right? So that's what I think. And even if you're doing one passage a day, make sure you're learning everything out of it and everything that is written and every idea there is that has crossed the author's mind should cross your mind as well, right? And hope you like the session and do let me know how the whole audio lecture was, right? In the doubt group. All right. Thank you.